Hello, tacticians! Apparently there indeed is no rest for the wicked, because I really wanted to be doing something other than Tacticus videos today, but a viewer asked for help, so welcome to Godswyl's Theoretical Mythic Journey. This one is for you, WR138. Mission 1. Defeat 3 suppressed enemies with Godswyl in one turn. This mission is a bit of a Burchard check combined with some RNG fun. You want to set up with Godswyl as the front line and Burchard as the back line, so that Burch suppresses the 3 enemies adjacent to Godswyl, at least some of which need to have the battle fatigue trait. And then Godswyl's attack, passive, and scary warface need to score that sweet triple kill. You can probably find an onslaught difficulty that will work for your Burchard, but since I didn't want to use a ticket for this, I will demonstrate in Elite Mirror Octarius 40.
The first mission of Godswyl's Mythic Journey requires him to defeat 3 suppressed enemies in one turn, and with my Gold 1 Godswyl and Burchard, who is the best support for this seems possible here in the Elite Galgord stage of Mirror Octarius. So start like this and place Godswyl here. Now I'm gonna be buffing Godswyl with Dante and Trajan if everything goes as it usually went before this run. And what I'm expecting is Galgords going WA on Dante, which should put his summoned boys adjacent to Godswyl. There, perfect. Now my Burchard should be able not to kill any of the 3 targets since I removed his crit item, so shooting the middle boy will bring everything lower and suppress it. Now I'm gonna use Trajan's active because my Godswyl needs the damage boost along with Dante's passive to destroy Galgords, and I'm gonna hope that his normal attack killing Galgords will scare the boy in the middle, and if that doesn't happen, that his passive follow-up will kill one of the remaining boys and scare the other one. So wish me luck. Nope, didn't happen, but this is how you can do the mission in principle. I think this is a sufficient demonstration. You just need to get lucky with the battle fatigue. It may have been better if I had Burchard here and he was able to shoot here to suppress more boys around Galgords and the secondary target. More chances to score the battle fatigues that way, but I think you get the idea. So at this point I'm gonna move on.
Mission 2. Deal 5000 damage to stunned enemies with Godswyl in one turn. This mission is probably best done with Arjek or Niall for stun support in a high-level onslaught stage. The Tyrannid heroes should have enough HP, and the Neurothrope, the Winged Prime, and the Poopsucker of Morthrax present a rare opportunity for Niall to be useful. Alternative stunning and brave heroes can be Tank Smasha using his active at a big target, or Meg the Thought using her active at a big summon, and in the worst case scenario, Godswyl can stun his own target and score the damage with his passive, but that requires a big enough enemy starting its turn adjacent to Godswyl, and you will probably want to have Thoriat, Dante and Trajan around as emotional support. I believe Trajan's passive will trigger from Godswyl's active for his passive like it does with Carrion, but I didn't test this.
The second mission of Godswyl's Mythic Journey supposedly requires him to deal 5000 damage to stunned enemies in one turn, and that's gonna be probably the easiest to do in the arena, at least if you have Arjek, but I found it quite difficult to find an arena match where I think this would be viable. And this is actually the 4th or 5th arena I'm specifically sniping teams to do it in. And it's still not great if you ask me. Yeah. Okay, I was really hoping the Mephiston and Dante combo would kill nothing, and apparently I succeeded. So now, when you're set up, you can stun something with Arjax active, which at 0 stacks from other heroes dying will deal pitiful damage. So that's what I'm gonna do with Ragnar, because Ragnar doesn't have any mitigations like Terrifying, like Dante and Mephiston, or the Martial Kata that Carrion has. And also he's in a corner. So I'm gonna bring Dante here, and I'm gonna do his punch there. And with a bigger Godswyl and his abilities, and maybe with a fatter Ragnar because of the knockback, this hopefully would have been 1000 damage more. I couldn't really sacrifice any slots here to bring in Thoriad, who would have doubled Godswill's abilities damage, or Trajan, or whoever, so consider this mostly a demonstration. Now what? Now I need to somehow finacle a win. So I'm gonna finish off Ragnar with my Ragnar. Good, and that got rid of Godswyl. Then I'm gonna do this. And this. And then I'm gonna swap these two. Good. I did it in this order because I was trying to avoid Dante killing Mephiston off with his Final Vengeance, but apparently it's not gonna matter much because Kalgar did his thing there and killed everything, but now Kalgar should be distracted by the spores. Oh, and that's the Malleus, so infinite stuff that I'll need to chew through. That's not great. There. There, go for Kalgar. Ow. That's Kalgar gone, and the guardsman scared. Good. So this is a failed theoretical on how to do Godswill's second mission. Moving on.
Mission 3. Defeat 20 stunned enemies with Godswyl. For this one I have two options. It's extremely cheesable with Arjek and Tigurius in Mirror Octarius 44 or a similar stage like this.
The third mission of Godswill's Mythic Journey supposedly requires him to defeat 20 stunned enemies, not necessarily in one battle, but if you have Arjek, this should be cheesable in a stage like Mirror Octarius 44, where I'm gonna try to demonstrate. So, if your Arjek, like mine, is underdeveloped and will not kill the grots or whatever targets you're going for with his hammer, the first kill is free, like this. Now I'm gonna set up there. The problem with Godswyl is that he kills too easily after movement with his passive. Next step is to have everything attack Arjek, and eventually Arjek will block, and when he blocks he will place ice on the hex of the enemy that he had blocked. And when he blocks an enemy that is on ice, he will stun the enemy. Now, I kinda screwed up because I wanted to bring Tigurius to give Arjack an additional block chance. 50% I believe, which should also trigger the blocks. But in the end, that doesn't really matter. So when the grot or whatever gets stunned, you just swap out the respective cockblock hero, in my case Bellator and Dante, and you move Burchard in and take advantage like this. So that's skill number 3. And you repeat this until you scored the 20 of them, always replacing the wall heroes. Now, this is gonna take a while, especially if you, like me, forgot to bring Tigurius for that extra 50% chance block. But as you can see, it's definitely possible to do this in just 6 energy. And I think with the 3 frozen block kills, I have sufficiently demonstrated the strategy, so I'm just gonna finish the stage, and then I'm gonna move on to bigger and better things.
If you don't have Arjak, or at least Njal, you'll have to find a stage where your Godswyl can wait for our enemy to get in his face, then hit it with his active to stun it, and then finish it off with his passive. Like this.
If you don't have Arjack, you will have to improvise and find a setup where your Godswyl can use his active at something without killing it, to stun it, and then finishes it off with a follow-up strike from his passive. And for me, that's possible here in Elite Mirrorfall of Cadia 5 using the Terminators. Now, don't really mind my other heroes, they're used for clearing the stage, and they kinda need to be bigger than Godswyl, so the Terminators then go for him. And they also need to clear the bloodletters and block off this west high ground so the Terminators don't end up there. So that's why I'm using Trajan and Kalgar. They're not strictly necessary for this part. Okay, so if everything went well and you put your Burchard here, he can now use his active to stun the Terminator on the hill and finish him off with the passive. So that's how you get progress done in this mission without Arjack, and I think I can now move on with Clear Conscience.
Mission 4. Score 5 hits with Godswyl in 1 turn. This mission should be relatively difficult to easily complete in the TA by giving Godswyl either of the hits power-ups, or relatively easy to easily complete in the normal arena with Thoriad and Galgords giving Godswyl plus 2 hits to his normal attack and plus 1 hit to his passive, or very easy to easily complete in most campaign stages with Thoriad, Nicodemus and Dante, for example, which comes with the added benefit of not having to potentially throw an arena match.
The 4th mission of Godswyl's Mythic Journey requires him to score 5 hits in 1 turn, and with how many hit buffers there currently are in the Imperium, this should be really easy. So I'm gonna go for the Elite Mirrorfall of Cadia stage 5 again, and use Nicodemus to move to Godswyl and use his active. Then I'm gonna use Dante to position here and Thoriad to move here, and then I will bring Godswyl between the bloodletters. There, this scored 3 hits because Thoriad gives Godswyl plus 1 hit to all attacks, and Dante gave him +1 hit because Godswyl has at 50% or less health due to Nicodemus. So that's 3 hits scored. I need 2 more. Now Godswyl has healed himself through Nicodemus, so Dante's passive no longer applies, but Thoriat still does. So his normal attack or the active ability now scored 2 hits. Boom, and that should complete the mission, at least in theory. So now I just need to clear the stage, which shouldn't really be a problem. And I think I can happily call this mission a success and move on.
Mission 5. Deal 200,000 damage with Godswyl. While Godswyl gets a stupidly high damage goal for his final mission, at least it can be cheesed thanks to his automatically triggering passive, and those of Isabella or Nicodemus. Or both. Both is good, especially in Elite Mirror Octarius 7. You can consider it endurance training for when you're fingering something more interesting than a touchscreen.
The final mission of Godswyl Mythic Journey is for him to deal 200,000 damage, not necessarily in one battle, but that definitely is possible, for example here in Elite Mirror Octarius 7, and I will show you how. Position Godswyl and your auto healers something like this. Your 5th hero can be whoever you want, I think, and then you want to destroy all the ranged orcs with something flying. Dante works rather well at this. There. I should start moving Trajan closer to Izzy. There. Something I forgot about. There, that's another boy dead. And I forgot about Trajan again. I'm sure that is giving him trauma, but no, nothing he can't deal with. Another boy dead. I'm gonna kill this boy. Oh, come on. Well, no matter. There, that's all the boys dead. Now I will return Dante somewhere safe. Or, well, out of the way, more like. And next I will use up Izzy's Act of Faith so that she's counting the enemies. Now reposition again. And all you need to do now is pass turns until Godswyl has killed enough grots, which Izzy very conveniently will count through her Act of Faith. This is the fun part of the mission because you can now switch on your favorite TV show and just return an hour or so later to see how many enemies Godswyl has killed in your mental absence. Just keep passing turns. There. So I think I demonstrated how this works. Eventually you will want to check on Izzy, and she gets plus 10% chance to crit per kill. She doesn't count battle fatigues, she only really counts kills. And in this stage you need about 330 grots for the mission to be complete. So when the crit chance has reached plus 3300%, you are done. With that, I consider this mission sufficiently demonstrated, so I'm just gonna clear the stage and then I don't know, probably go do something else for a bit. There and there. And that's how I would go about my Godswyl's Mythic Journey. He's actually not too far from it, I guess, but he's nowhere near the top of my priority list for honoring in Onslaught, so he will have to wait for a bit still. As far as his uses go, he is kinda a machine in PvP, especially combined with Dante and probably Thoriat for the doubling of his damage output. But Mephiston pretty much does everything Godswyl can do except better. So, like I said, nowhere near the top of my priority list. And with that, I think I said and shown everything I wanted and could have. So, thank you for watching, Tactician. I hope this video helped you or at least entertained you. And maybe that I will see you again in the next one. Kaurin, out.